Hello, and welcome back. I'd like to take a little time today to talk about the shamanic perspective on things. My shamanic training literally made my world make sense. There were times that I had pieces of the puzzle and I had pieces of information, but I couldn't quite figure out how they all went together. The ideologies of different belief systems and different religions and so forth didn't really make sense to me. So when I found my way to shamanism, thank you, my dear friend that got me there, you know who you are, it really brought those things together and, again, helped my world make a lot of sense. And those are some of the few things that I'd like to share with you today. Now, obviously, it's a very big subject. I'll do many more videos on it. I have a passion for shamanism and shamanic work, shamanic teaching. So I wanted to talk about it today with the way it applies with what's going on in our current situation. Somewhere, we as humans have forgotten that everything we do has a consequence. In shamanic belief, we believe that everything is connected. Everything has a soul. So how you treat yourself is reflected, obviously, in your physical body and in your surroundings. How you act in your relationships is reflected with how your relationship functions. How you treat the earth is reflected within the earth. And now exponentialize that out to the entire culture, the entire society, or entireness of humanity. And think of everything that we're doing. And unfortunately, I would love to say it's positive. There are a lot of positive movements out there, and I do not want to discredit those whatsoever. But there's a lot of disrespectful actions that take place. We think of the things that we do to the earth, such as the miles and rivers of plastics that we have floating out in the earth, out in the oceans. All of the different things that are taking place. It always breaks my heart after the snow melt to be driving down the road and to see all the trash that we couldn't see that built up through the wintertime because of the snow. And things like that. We have to remember that since we're all connected, all of our actions have a reflection on the planet. And when we talk about the processes that are going on now, the ascension, the energy shifts, the planet is shifting as well. Mother Earth has got to change her vibration along with this. Many of you felt the shifts this weekend. Someone brought it to my attention that the Schumann frequency jumped up to 110 this weekend. If you're not familiar with the Schumann frequency, please look it up. It is a wonderful model and scientific explanation about the vibration of the planet itself. And when we have a lot of these waves come through, the Schumann frequency reflects that, even when we're just having days of maybe you're a little more anxious, or maybe you're a little crankier, or maybe you're not sleeping well, or maybe you've got some depression. That tends to be one of the first things I tell people to take a look at, because maybe it's not you. Maybe you are responding to what is taking place on the planet. And let's look how Mother Earth is responding. Fires in Australia last year. All of the volcanoes, all of the earthquakes. My goodness, we have had a major amount of earthquakes this year. She has to respond to everything that's going on too. And think about down in the Amazon. All of the burning and all of the deforestation that we've been doing. And what response does that have for us? What direct correlation? Think about how much oxygen is supplied from the Amazon, from the jungle, from the trees and the plant life there. And all of a sudden, we're going in and wiping this out. So if we tend to think of the Amazon like the lungs of a human being, and they're exchanging all those gases and bringing in oxygen or expelling oxygen, if all of a sudden we take those things away, when does that reflection start to happen on us? So these are some of the things that I feel, really need to begin to think about. But with everything that's going on with this pandemic, one thing that I really want to talk about today is negativity. From a shamanic perspective, I heard years ago that a virus is thought of as a negative thought process, a negative thought pattern, a negative thought form that actually manifests. So if you think about it that way, oh my goodness, what kind of negativity have we had on the planet? We all know negative people. And we're human. We have a tendency to give into negativity from time to time. But the important thing is that we don't stay there. And what I see with all of the fear that is taking place now, I'm not sure which is worse. The fear when this originally came out and we started talking about shutting things down and keeping us safe and keeping this from spreading too quickly, or the fear that I see and the fear that I feel coming from people as we're talking about reopening up. It is an amazing amount of fear that it is processing. And they say there's only two emotions, love and fear. And there is a huge dichotomy. There's a huge space between those two emotions right now. So I really want you to question within yourself, where do you fall on this? Sometimes we are back and forth like a ping pong ball, and that's okay. But some people the needle is getting pegged way over to the fear side, and probably want to take a look at that. Not only for yourself, not only for your ascension process, not only for what that's manifesting in your body and around you, but also for what that is feeding into out in the ethers, what that's feeding into energetically. So again, it's not that we're not going to ever get into negativity, but it's time to start understanding it. Really notice when you're around people that are negative, which this could even be virtually, or if you're watching the news, or if you're watching the latest Facebook update, or if you're IMing with a friend about what's been going on and there's a lot of fear and a lot of negativity going back and forth. Okay? How do you respond? Do you feel attacked so that you throw negativity back? Or do you feel it's your job to shift the energy? We all respond a little differently. But it becomes important in times like this to understand that people are going to be negative, but that doesn't mean you have to be. You can choose to understand what they're going through. Now, I understand that Sue's really having a hard time with this because this affects her income. Or I understand that Steve is really having a hard time with this because his wife is unemployed and she's cranky and this is affecting his home life and the kids are home all the time and nobody has any personal space. But you can understand and you can observe, you can even hold space without taking on those emotions. You do not have to, it's not a hot potato. Someone does not have to pass it from one person to another to another. As the old saying goes, you can do you and let them do them. But that's not what I see happening. Is I see so many of us that are trying to promote positivity and trying to uplift and help change the vibration here will step in and give way too much of ourselves in trying to change that negative to the positive to where it actually turns into an argument. And then the whole vibe over it is negative. So what are we really helping there? And they walk away feeling defeated. So really choose to understand what might be going on. Doesn't mean you have to agree with it. Doesn't mean it has to even be your thought processes. But you can choose to understand that is what that person is going through. And again, let that person feel their own negativity. You do not have to take it on. It is not your process. So really take that moment and sit with, how does that negative response, how does that negative news, how does that person venting on Facebook, how does that affect you? Is it the way that you want to be affected? You can get information without changing your vibration and without shifting your perspective. But many of us tend to go to that other extreme to get involved with the situation or to get involved with the argument or feel like we can add a perspective that will change it. And I can tell you, for the fear that I've dealt with, and again, this is just personal experience, I'm not going to change that. When someone comes to me and says, what is your thought process on this? Or how do you think I can deal with the fact that my husband's always negative? Or how do I deal with this? Then a person is asking. And that means they're ready to change. That means they're open to new ideas. That means they are sick and tired of being in that vibration. They don't like being in that behavior. And then they're wanting to move forward. Because you have to remember, you're not going to make anyone do anything that they don't want to do, and you're not going to make them believe anything they don't want to believe. Here's another one that I tend to use as well, is that when I have someone who either comes in my office or we're working virtually or on the phone, and we're talking and they're just venting a lot of negativity about a situation, I'll stop them and say, okay, I just need to get clear on this. Would you like me to hold space for you so that you can just vomit all this out and get rid of it? Or do you truly want a perspective or opinion from me on this? Or maybe some possible tools? And it's amazing to watch people sit back and think about that and process it. Because most of the time they're not sure. But that is a perfectly valid tool that you can use so that you can keep your energy yours and their energy theirs, and you can help them in the best possible way, which is what they're asking for. We have to remember our individuality with this. All of this awakening energy is coming in. All of it is going to continue to come in. And it's wonderful. It's what we've been asking for. It's what we're in this incarnation for. So it's not negative. But it is how we deal with it. And when this awakening energy comes in, sometimes it comes in wonderful and we're all with a smile on our face going, oh my gosh, this was wonderful. Could we please stay here? And other times it feels like a knockdown drag out. It feels like guerrilla warfare. We just got hijacked from somewhere and we don't know what's going on or what just came in. So everyone's going to take this a little differently, but one thing I can share with you is when we feel hijacked by this energy, when we feel surprised by this energy, there's going to be a grief process. There's going to be a shock that happens. I've said many times, awakening doesn't happen without a shock because something has to take us outside of our comfort zone. If we like the way things are going, then we don't want to change anything and we're not necessarily looking for growth. So I would encourage you through this whole process to be present, to remember that everything that you think, everything that you say, everything that you interact with has a consequence. And I mean that in a positive aspect, meaning you have power to change things. That one person recycling, that one person, making an act of planting a tree to help with the oxygen in the earth. Whether you're getting groups of people together and sending out love and light and helping on a much bigger span. Whatever you need to help you through this process. Because again, we want our reverberation here to be one of positiveness and growth and awakening and expansion. And that's exactly the opposite of everything that's being kicked up right now. And that's why people are coming unglued. They don't know how to handle this. I see it in my own life. I see it around me. I am not in isolation from any of this, nor any of you. But again, you can decide what part you play in it. You can take some power. Power in protecting yourself. Power in standing in your own beliefs. Power in moving forward and taking steps that benefit all. There's so much power that we have in this time period, and I see people giving that power away to fear. So I want to really encourage you through this process because we know it's not stopping anytime soon. The awakening process and ascension will be going on our entire lifetime. It's going to come in waves. And my hope is that as we go through a lot of these waves, that we learn new tools and that we do a lot more releasing and we see what's important. I've said many times, this is all about authenticity. It is the true authentic selves that we are seeing. So please be kind to yourself, take care of yourself, and we'll talk again soon.